Welcome back. It's Alex Miceli, my one take inside my offices. Normally I don't do this in my offices. I'm always outside, but it's raining here in Northern Virginia, so you get the office. PGA Tour, Cameron Champ. You know, last week when he was defending at Sanderson Farms, there was a lot of discussion about, it's been a year, where's he been, what's he been doing. I guess he kind of took what everybody was saying to heart this week because he played brilliantly through 4 rounds. There was some discussion about his grandfather who had taught him how to play golf and got him introduced and who was having some obviously physical issues, health issues. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't matter because what Cameron Champ did is prove that he belongs on the PGA Tour and can be out here for a very long time. 2 wins now. It gets back to the discussion I think I had the other day and the other discussions I keep talking about here on One Take is the fact that you never know who's going to win on the PGA Tour anymore. It's just impossible to determine because there's so many good players. I can tell you that Cameron Champ is a long hitter. He blew away Rory McIlroy last year in driving distance. He was number 1 by 3 yards, I think, more than Rory McIlroy. So that just shows he's got length. But length is only part of the equation, as you know. There's a lot of great players that don't have length. So bottom line is Cameron Champ showed that he can get it done. A little disappointed. Both Adam Scott was on the leaderboard after the top of the leaderboard the first day. Bryson DeChambeau the second day. I don't know where they went. They finished in the top 15, but still, all in all, when you got that kind of talent up there, you'd think they'd do a little better. You also had Zach Blair. You had Colin Morikawa, who everybody knows who he is now. And Dylan Fratelli, all in the top 10. Now, Zach Blair was somehow made it back to the PGA Tour off of the Korn Ferry Tour. But Zach Blair is kind of like, where's he been? But again, played very, very well. Dylan Fratelli is an interesting discussion because Dylan Fratelli is actually talking about he sees himself as a possible pick by Ernie Els on the International President's Cup team. Keeps playing like this. I bet you Els will look at him. He knows Fratelli very, 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 very well. It's probably too many varies. And, Els is looking for a hot player. He is looking for the hot players. If I look at the European Tour last week in Scotland, no internationals were hot, really. U.S. Tour, Fratelli was hot. The other guy that we talked about a little here and there and everywhere as we talked President's Cup is Phil Mickelson. Miscut again. Now, if I told you after winning at AT&T last year, after winning, he would not have a top 10. After winning, he would only have 1 top 20, and that was at Augusta National where he finished the 18th. If I told you that, would you question my knowledge of golf? I think it's fair to say you would. Phil Mickelson showed up in this felt body. I don't know where he picked it up from, but he got it. Looks great. Plays horrible. Is that what you're looking for, Tiger Woods, when you're talking about President's Cup team? Is that who you're thinking should be one of your 4 picks? Well, maybe 3 picks since Tiger's probably picking himself. Then he'd have 2 left. That would be quite interesting. Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. Both of them struggling, showing up in Australia. That's all I'm going to say about that. Victor Perez won the Dunhill Links. Carnoustie, Kingsbarns, 2 days at St. Andrews, the old course. Not a bad gig. And then on top of that, winning 730-something thousand euros. I'm all over that. Rory McIlroy was there and then commented about setup at those 3 golf courses and said the European Tour has this setup too easy. It doesn't really reflect the best players when we have easy setups. Well, let me just say one thing to Rory, and I respect his comments. First of all, when you're sitting there chomping about slow play, you make hard golf courses harder, you're going to have slower play, period. So there's a trade-off, Rory. You can't have fast play and difficult golf courses, or at least setups at difficult golf courses. Secondly, not everybody's as good as you, Rory. You have to have other people actually compete. If you want to have, the Open Championship every week or the U.S. Open every week, you're not going to see a lot of good golf. Now, this is an entertainment sport. It's all television. If you think that's going to make it interesting, then go for it. But I don't think Keith Pelley, who's an entertainer, is going for that. And nor should he. Because then all of a sudden, we have a game that is very, very difficult to watch, and it's already somewhat difficult to watch, as I've said before. It's not watching paint dry on the PGA Tour or the European Tour, but it could get to that point. I think the other thing that's interesting out of what happened this week, at least from my standpoint, is the whole driver controversy, the testing. Xander Schauffele, remember back at the Open Championship, they said he had a non-conforming driver, pulled it out. Felt like that was unfair. People probably characterized him as maybe a cheater, and I'm thinking the European press they did, or at least in the UK press. We've always talked about this. Players know. I mean, they're smart. They pick up a driver, brand new, it's conforming, they hit it over weeks or over months, as much as they hit it, it slowly deforms. And by deforming, it means it's going to have an illegal characteristic behind it, which means the ball is going to go further. Players know when they have a hot driver. Now, no offense to any player, but if you have a hot driver, why would you suggest taking it out of play? That's what is supposed to happen. When you think your driver is hot, you should go get it tested to determine if it actually conforms, and if it doesn't conform, you should take it out of play. There were something like 4 or 5 drivers taken out of play this week at the Safeway under the Tour's new policy of testing 30 players each week, or 30 drivers, I should say. Most of those players were not happy with the fact that their driver was yanked out of their hands. Well, really wasn't yanked out of their hands, but they were told that they couldn't play that driver. Some of them sent them back to the manufacturers, and the manufacturer list is a plethora of manufacturers in the golf business. What do you do here? If a driver, and I'm fairly confident saying this, every driver when it leaves the factory conforms. Every driver practically, after some amount of play on the PGA Tour, will not conform. So do we change the rule? Should we just say, if it conforms at the time you've entered it in, you first picked it up, the first time you get it, the first time you use it, when it leaves the factory, if it conforms, that's good enough? Or are we going to sit there and go through this whole, rigmarole? Oh, his driver didn't get tested, and you see how far that ball went, so then next week it gets tested, and we find out that it fails the test, and all of a sudden, well, maybe he shouldn't have won that week because he had No, let's not go there, okay? The bottom line is that you can't stop these drivers from going from conforming to non-conforming. So the PGA Tour, the USGA, the R&A need to come up, European Tour, whoever, they need to come up with something that makes sense, because this will not make sense. And then people are going to start questioning players weeks after. I mean, if you're the PGA Tour, do you think you should have a policy that a driver should be tested after a winner's win? I mean, horses get tested after their win just to make sure, right? Complicated conversation. Bottom line is why are we having it? It's a good sport. Things are going well. Everybody's making money. Why are we clouding the issue? Was that me saying that? I'm Alex Miceli.